Werewolf husband is eating everything we own. My husband has had issues with sleepwalking before, but I've never known it to be this bad. At first, I thought someone had broken into the house, but it's just my husband, eating half our kitchen in his sleep. We're both athletic and don't eat a lot of sweets, but this man is eating everything he can get his hands on. I'm worried about his health, but not sure what to do. So, like many people, I have a husband that usually sleeps with me at night. Tonight, however, he was out for work very late, and I just chose to sleep early. I was woken up by a noise in the kitchen. Being a pro athlete, I have many weights scattered around my house, so I pick one up and go to investigate the noise. There's light in the kitchen, and a man in a hoodie is rummaging through my fridge. I silently get closer, raise my dumbbell to hit him, and see it's my freaking husband. I nearly soiled myself, and he's just peacefully eating my share of our chocolate while looking like a homeless man who just broke in. I tell him so, and I ask him when he got home, but I get no answer. His eyes are closed. There are no signs of consciousness in this man. I try talking to him, but he just sits at the kitchen counter and is taking whole bites of the chorizo. Then he has 2 donuts, then chocolate, now the rice. He's downing a week's worth of food, and I'm both in awe and worried for his well-being. Should I wake him up? I have no idea what to do. Update: it's now 3 a.m. My sleepwalking husband, who I nearly wiped out of existence, is calmly eating his weight in food. I don't know what to do. Up until now, my hubby has eaten 2/3 of a rice cooker full of rice, 3 boxes of red Lindt chocolates, half a rotisserie chicken, 4 donuts that were meant for tomorrow's brunch with my sister, 3 bites out of a chorizo, a block of mozzarella cheese, 3 bottles of ginger ale, and an entire cauliflower raw. This was before I arrived on the scene. I found out after the crime was committed. I tried to throw water at him and an oven mitt. I also tried talking to him and putting his alarm on, all from a safe distance. Mr. ain't waking up. Yes, I filmed it. No, I won't be sharing it, as he has taken off his clothes and is currently completely undressed and diving in peanut butter. Sharing it would most likely take time, as I would have to ask for his consent and censor it well enough. Update: it's 4 a.m. The husband is secured. Have you ever seen a grown man with no clothes on dipping whole bananas in peanut butter? I have, and it is seared in my memory. The broom didn't help. The ice-cold water didn't either, maybe because he takes ice-cold showers in the morning. The pillow only got stained with peanut butter. I didn't wake him up, I just took him by the hand and guided him to bed. He's now secure in bed, happily playing with his balls. Man, do I love this stupid werewolf man. I'm laughing my rear off. Also, add to the above food list 2 bananas dipped directly in the peanut butter jar, the top of an entire focaccia tray, a mayo tube he put to his mouth, and handfuls of cereal that we got for his niece. Boy, is he up for the runs of the century tomorrow. Final update. Well, it is now midday in the land of werewolves. We didn't sleep much because my hubby got quite sick and started spitting up not long after the whole pantry raid. I had to care for him. I showed him the video this morning, and his reaction was, "I am both in disbelief and extremely sorry for you." We laughed about it and thought it was a story we can't wait to tell our son. He was particularly laughing at him dipping unpeeled bananas into peanut butter, only to peel them right after. Such a waste of homemade peanut butter. As many of you guessed, he was on sleeping pills. He came home late from work, but had to be awake quite early the next morning, and he couldn't sleep. So he took some of the sleeping pills my mom left behind when she visited us. In case you're wondering, this is not America. This is the land of waffles. These pills, which according to Google are called the tablet wand, are supposed to break into 4 different servings, and he took a full one. Also, he used to frequently sleepwalk and eat when he was stressed. We'd wake up to bites taken out of the pizza, fruits missing, etc., but this is the first time I've ever seen him do it, and I thought it was a burglar from the noise he was making. To those of you who asked if he was on a diet, yes, he was. He is a pro boxer and an accountant. He had a match, and he was worried he'd be over 90 kilos, as he has nowhere near the strength for that weight category. His coach put him on a hugely restrictive diet of a few protein bars and boiled chicken, apples, and yogurt for like a week. He was looking forward to today's brunch. For those of you who asked what I'm pro in, swimming. We also co-own a gym with my mom and stepdad. For those who asked why I'd write on Reddit instead of helping him, I wrote on Reddit and helped him. Multitasking. I also genuinely never thought of just taking him by the hand and leading him to the room. Like I said, this is the first time I've been in this situation. Also, that man is strong. He could bench press me. I love that this original poster saw that her husband wasn't reacting to freezing cold water, so she threw an oven mitt. That's like when a robber sees that Superman isn't reacting to bullets, so he throws the gun. And if you're wondering how this story made the cut when we are generally doing horror stories this month, it came up in a search because she refers to her husband as a werewolf. But this story was so charming and bizarre, it was just impossible to let it slide without including it. There's something insane, yet weirdly adorable about this woman just standing there and watching her husband eat everything in their kitchen for over an hour straight, then nursing him back to health when he predictably can't keep it all down. If anything about this story is legitimately scary, it's that OP has no idea what kind of sleeping pill her husband even took. The husband doesn't seem to know either. I really shouldn't have to make this public service announcement, but don't take pills without knowing what they are. And if for some reason you do take pills without knowing what they are, definitely don't take 4 times the amount you're supposed to take. This OP and her husband came away from the experience with a funny story, but this could have gone much, much worse. There are people who take sleeping pills and wind up behind the wheel of their car. This man should not be taking these pills without anybody knowing about it beforehand. Next time, the results might not be so funny. I once met 2 cowboy vampires in Montana. Around 15 years ago, I was a teenager working a late-night fast food job in Montana, and I had some very unusual customers. The restaurant was pretty empty that night. I was the only person working at the front counter. Then, in come 3 people, 2 guys with a girl between them. The guys were dressed like how a tourist would think a cowboy dresses. Cowboy boots, jeans, big belt buckles, plaid shirts, cowboy hats. They looked kind of ridiculous, and they were constantly smiling, like they were very amused with themselves and having a great time. And they had very visible, pointed canine teeth and strange, bright eyes. The girl looked dazed, as if she'd been given something to put her out of it. She was very thin, and the men were clearly guiding and almost carrying her between them. Honestly, if I hadn't just been a clueless kid at the time, I would have contacted the authorities, because she could have been a trafficking victim. I still feel bad thinking back about this, because that poor girl obviously needed help, and I was a useless idiot. I took their order and served them food. They sat at a booth I could see from where I was standing at the front counter. The guys were trying to get the girl to eat, but they weren't eating anything themselves. And then they left, guiding the girl out and still looking very amused with themselves. And I just stood at the counter through this whole thing, frozen like a freaking NPC attached to the register. I was totally fuzzy-brained, just standing there like an idiot, not even cleaning the counter or getting ready to close the restaurant for the night. I was just totally baffled by the teeth, the eyes, and why the heck they were dressed like cowboys. In the comments, OP explains that he actually looked to see if he could find any missing person cases at the time that fit the girl's description. He came up empty, which is good. One gross thing you don't really get from hearing this story in the context of a narration video is that this OP was really excited to share this with people in the comment sections of other posts. Even though he says that he feels terrible about not calling the authorities on the off chance this girl was a less than willing participant in whatever was happening that night, it's pretty clear that he really just enjoys sharing a story about vampire cowboys. Or cowboy vampires. I'm not sure if there's a difference. Then again, I can't ride him too hard for that. Let's be honest, if the vampires hadn't been cowboys, we wouldn't be talking about this story right now. The kid knows what sells, and while it's pretty easy to doubt basically anything that comes from the Humanoidencounters subreddit, I find myself actively hoping for this one to be untrue. The alternative is that there was really some girl out there who needed help and never got it, and that's terrifying to think about. However, one has to assume that it's probably also a fairly common occurrence. Even if not for the sharp teeth, most observers would have just thought it was a drunk girl hanging out with a couple of guys. A lot of people wouldn't even consider whether her drink might have been spiked, or the fact that she had no idea where she was. With Halloween coming up, and with it being such a common night for heavy drinking, that's something to keep in mind. Sometimes it might look like people are just having harmless fun, but it never hurts to think critically about what you're seeing, especially if someone's safety might hinge on the willingness of one person to speak up. If you made it this far in the video, consider liking and subscribing for more videos coming. A werewolf crossed my front yard. I know this may sound crazy. It was around 2015 or 2016. I remember it being in the summertime. The trees and brush were still full and lush. My wife and I lived on 12 acres of land in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. The land was mostly wooded, with maybe 3 acres around the home cleared out, with the exception of randomly spaced trees, 2 acres in the front yard, and about 1 acre in the back. The house was built in 1969, and the state of the home was original to the year, right down to the shag carpet. We originally moved in back around 2014, and over the years of living there, we gradually worked on remodeling when we had the extra time and money. The land had 2 small barns on the property that we turned into chicken coops. We also decided to add a sheep. As a side note, the home itself always had an unsettling feeling. The basement had a dark, evil feeling, with a freezer full of animal carcasses and a gallon bucket full of frozen blood that was there when we moved in. But that's another story on its own. So, over the span of living there, we had problems keeping our chickens alive. We couldn't find out how something could be getting into the coops. One day, we got home from grocery shopping in the early afternoon to find all of our chickens lifeless and spread across our backyard. It didn't make sense. We had that heavy-duty hardware cloth wire caging that was torn like something clawed through it. We were concerned and weren't sure of what to do. After all, we had the sheep to worry about. I began sitting out at night and different times of day when I had the time. I thought maybe I could hunt whatever it was that was destroying our animals, but nothing ever showed up. We kept a close eye on our sheep, the best we could, making sure he was well protected. That was until one random morning when we went out to feed him and found him out of his stable and lying there in the backyard, not moving. We still don't know how he got out. He had no marks or explanation of what happened to him. The only thing coming to mind is a fear-induced heart attack. Now onto the sighting. Like I said, it was summertime. I had the windows open because our air conditioner wasn't working very well on the second floor, and I was trying to get a breeze through the house. My wife was at work. Meanwhile, I'm working on putting our laundry away in our upstairs bedroom. I began hearing this deep growl sound and a slightly higher pitch growl sound with it. I couldn't tell what it was, so I stuck my head out the window to listen better. I could hear something coming from the woods on the right side, slowly getting louder while coming closer to being in view. As the sound drew near, my heartbeat sunk. I felt fear and dread. I was scared, but I wasn't sure why. That was until it came into the clearing. There it was, this giant werewolf, walking across my front yard. It was walking on all fours. It had a giant canine head, a large humped back, a long bushy tail, and its fur was thick on its chest and back, but thinned out on its legs. Its joints bent like ours. As it walked, its back legs bent like our knees do, and its front legs bent like our elbows do. As it was walking into the front yard, I was able to measure it up after watching it walk past a tree. It was at least 5 feet, standing on all fours, so I imagined it being 7 or 8 feet tall on its hind legs. The slightly higher pitch sound was coming from behind it. Following behind was an identical pup. I was in such shock I couldn't move. Frozen in what I was witnessing, I didn't even think to try and photograph it. I guess, in that moment, I didn't want to miss anything. It carried on across the front yard, going deeper into the woods. I told my wife about it and have never seen it again since that day. I also never went outside without protection after that. We ended up moving out in 2018. Just wondering if anyone else has had any encounters like this in Tennessee or anywhere else. The answer to OP's question is apparently an overwhelming yes. One of the subtopics on Humanoid Encounters is dogmen. Apparently, they're pretty common fare when it comes to cryptid sightings, and Tennessee is an especially big place for them. I couldn't tell you why there are so many werewolves hanging out in that one state, but people swear up and down that it's true. That said, there were commenters who had a few issues with this post, and those issues were only solved by a later edit. Originally, this OP didn't say anything about these creatures having knee and elbow joints like ours. He merely described a very large wolf. Naturally, the commenters were quick to ask why he assumed this was a werewolf in particular. That was when he added the details about the joints bending the same way ours do. The sub's users accepted this new detail rather quickly, although it's always a bit questionable when an OP edits in major details that change the entire context of their story. Such a notable detail really feels like something you wouldn't just forget to mention on your first pass through the story. Of course, the thing that gets me about these stories will always be the endless reasons every OP seems to have for why they failed to take a picture of something incredible in an age where people can't even see a rude lady at Starbucks without remembering to grab video evidence. Apparently, people have the presence of mind to prove that Karen didn't return her shopping cart at Trader Joe's, but they totally blank when they have the opportunity to prove that werewolves exist. Then again, maybe it's for the best. It's not like anyone ever wanted to believe Karens existed either. Let's try not to overburden the world with too many monsters at a time. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.